the statistic that one of my embalmers brought up, that every 6 seconds someone tests positive and every 8 minutes someone dies. I feel that right now because the phones don't stop ringing. It is call after call of family asking me to help. And I don't have room anymore. And it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to say that I can't help them right away because, you get a call from a family. It's the first time someone has passed and they don't know what to ask. They don't know what they're feeling. And I can give them all this information. I can walk them through the process. I can give them pricing on services. I can describe all of their options to them. But when it comes down to, can you pick up my loved one? I have to say, I don't have space. I'm at capacity. I can put you on a wait list.
The funeral industry is struggling to keep up with the rapidly increasing death toll caused by the coronavirus pandemic.
The funeral industry is usually bringing families together, but at a time when physical distancing applies, that's no longer possible.
But funeral directors and embalmers are being overwhelmed during the crisis as well.
Look into my eyes
and describe what you see.
I see
light is the first thing that came to mind.
Joy.
Depth.
I see a person whose head is probably swimming right now.
Beauty. Intelligence.
I see the person that I love,
Somebody who has been working flat out now for almost a year in really, really difficult circumstances and could do with some time for herself.
What do you think has been the hardest thing regarding my work since the beginning of the pandemic I haven't shared with you? And what can you do to support me better?
I guess maybe it would be potential exposure in a body that you might work with or who you may come in contact with. When people are grieving, I don't want to use a disparaging term like hysterics, but you're coming in contact with people who might be in a state where they aren't thinking, clearly.
Which we haven't talked about. I found myself getting really numb with, all of the numbers with the people from COVID who are dying and seeing the pictures of the refrigerated, semi-trailers for bodies and just that there's so much death around that there's a numbness that I've created around myself. And because I deal with people that deal with this every day, it's a reminder that I have to myself that that it is real.
That LA is lifting air quality control so that crematories can be able to do more cremations and not have to worry about the air quality impact. That's where we're at. That is the sad reality of where we are at.
When it became 100,000 deaths in the UK, and I think of the people I know who have died from COVID, and gosh, if only, the number was 999,998, and those two people were still alive. It's awful to think that they make up that number.
Yeah. Oh, it's horrendous.
Percentages and numbers are, if only 0.3% of people are dying of COVID or whatever the number is, or of violence or whatever, if it happens to you, it's 100%. And so I'm trying to remind myself that this is, even if you don't realize it, it's personal.
if you lose a grandparent and then someone says, oh, well, how old were they? Because then if they're old, then it's like, oh, it's fine. When in fact, I was in a funeral, I was conducting a funeral this week, and the person's 2 young children were sobbing in the front row. And it's not the elderly who are only being affected by this.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And even if someone was a bit older or they did have underlying health conditions, COVID has still shortened their life. They're not necessarily people who should be having their funeral now. They would still be here in 5 years, potentially.
Yeah.
And that has been really heartbreaking to deal with.
And I mean, let's just be frank, in your line of work, that is a time where a lot of people and families can be exploited very easily. And I think you found a way to not only serve your purpose, but to serve others. And by giving them information and by also learning more and expanding your horizons, you've offered that to other people as well, which I think is beautiful. So you're essentially an educator.
I'm constantly thinking in my head, how do I just create more space? How do I create more time? How do I clone myself and take care of everyone right now? Because that's what I want to do the most.
I'm so tired of saying no to people. It feels horrendous, absolutely horrendous, when death already takes away so many choices and your feeling of control, and all we do is say no when all we want to do is say yes, and in the past could have done. And it just is, at the end of the day you just feel pretty wretched because of it.
And we're constantly the bearers of bad news, as if people weren't already having to deal with the most awful situations. They then get in touch with something that they want to do, and we have to say, I'm really sorry, COVID restrictions mean that we just won't be able to do that right now. It's just not possible.
I just kind of want to cry all the time.
What do you think grief has taught us this past year?
What do I think grief has taught us?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's a big question.
Do you think that society really even knew what grief was until this past year?
No, do you know what? I was just thinking that this is the first, this feels like a real sort of moment, because I don't think society has engaged with the realities of dying in a way that they've been forced to over this last year.
Yeah, grief. Like, everybody doesn't grieve the same way. You know this for a fact. And let's be honest, one of the stages of grief is anger.
And denial.
Yeah. And people latch on to, those are such strong emotions that people can latch on to and let overcome them. And they let those emotions fuel them and their decision making.
I think fear of death is tends to be a low level constant for humans, but now it's so palpable in some places. And I think people are being forced to engage with it, and all at once under the pressure of a pandemic, and I think people are struggling with it.
And that's kind of worrisome too, because it's like, not just with COVID, even though COVID is like a huge thing, but like just the state of the world and the response that the whole world is having to COVID, and not just COVID, racial tension, everything, everything is happening all at once. The Great Reset and everything changing and the world being different, going from electronic money or cash to electronic money, going from one social system to another social system. I don't want to say I'm worried, but I am concerned about what that adjustment, because you just can't flip a switch on people. And that's essentially what's happened.
Yeah.
And not just death related grief either. I think people have realized that you can grieve other things as well, such as jobs, relationships, friends.
Absolutely.
Actually, we're grieving much more than just the people who have died.
Yeah.
What do you think my profession is teaching us now?
You got to do two things in life. Well, under this construct, societal construct, you got to die and you got to pay taxes. Maybe the traditional way of how we view death and grieving isn't what it has to be. There can be rejoicing, there is beauty, there is transition, there is power. I call it leveling up. Like you get an extra life and you know, Mario with the mushroom, get a little bit bigger. So I believe that. And I think you show that to people. And I think that's beautiful. You know, just sitting, talking to you and listening and hearing about the different global practices or the different, I will say rituals because they are a part of the society's system and function. It's amazing, you know?
What do you think gives me hope this week?
Hope. Feels really hard because I feel like this has been such a hard, relentless week that there hasn't been space to think about anything nice. Oh my God, that's so bleak, isn't it?
I wish I could say the future is bright, but it seems gloomy. It seems cloudy up ahead. It seems like the storm is brewing. It's like when we're at home and we look out in the skyline, like over the water, and I can see like the big, thick, dark clouds rolling in. That's what I look out and see. And it's like the uncertainty of, oh, is it going to just be a cloudy day? Or is it going to like rain, thunder, and lightning?
Mm-hmm.
I much prefer our cloudy days.
We've also been granted with hope and noticing what hope is. Like Pandora's box literally got fucking opened, but hope is still in that box in the corner ready to pop out. Like, hey, I still exist in this world too. You get to see the goodness and trueness of people as well.
I think the ray of light, the bit of hope that I've taken from this week is that we have genuinely helped people in a really awful situation.